Hello. I don't really know where to start on this whole thing, but I have a story to tell. It's a very long one. I have an hour to record this, so it's going to be a bit abbreviated. But basically, there's long and treacherous activities at fault, and the story is going to be very long and probably very convoluted, and many details will have to be missing, which is unfortunate. But I only have an hour to record it. So it's very unfortunate, but I only have an hour to record. So a lot of the details are going to have to be shortened or altered in some form. The details may be completely changed, causing a completely new story to be made up. Some of the details in the story may not even be true to begin with. They could just be made up. They could be fabrications. Um, but I don't have much time to record it. I only have an hour, which is fine, I guess. I can deal with that. But because of the time limit, some of the details may be a little bit altered and changed. But I think that's okay because because the story will still be told. It's one that I've been needing to tell for a while now. It's a the story. It's a biography of the famous YouTuber Radicat Foo, Radicat underscore Foo, famous YouTuber, long changed pseudonym, very changed, very altered, very new. They used to go by that all the time. That was like their identity years ago, like years ago, years ago, many years ago. I don't even remember when. I think it was. How many years ago was that? Um, like 2017, 2018, maybe 2019. Way back then, many years ago. Coming up at almost like 5 years, which is crazy. 5, 6, 7. That's when they used to go by that. They didn't do anything of value back then. I don't even think they had a presence on the internet. I don't even think they were allowed to have a presence on the internet yet. But the details the details don't matter. What matters is the story. This user Radicat Foo had a very strange backstory. As one day they were sitting whatever hellscape that they lived in, whatever hellscape they had to endure, and while they were sitting there, they had a vision. They had a prophecy of a man, the Hat Man, even a man who wore a hat. It was a hat being worn by a man. And this creature looked at him. The creature looked at Radicat Foo and said, "Look at me." And the user looked at him, following its demands. And and the Hat Man looked at the Hat Man looked at the user and said, "Look at me." And the person looked at him attentively, even. And the Hat Man looked at him and he said, "Look at me." And the user looked at him, following his directions. And after that, the Hat Man said, you are chosen. You are chosen for a task at hand." And the user didn't really say anything because, like, what are you supposed to say to a Hat Man? You don't say anything to a Hat Man. You let the Hat Man say things. You don't say anything to the Hat Man. And well, Hat Man enjoyed the presence of the user. The Hat Man enjoyed the user just looking at him, which is the directions that he gave the user. After the Hat Man said that the user was chosen, Radicat Foo knew exactly what to do. So the Hat Man disappeared. The Hat Man said before he disappeared, in years time, you have to make a video on your YouTube channel about this. So the user knew that they had to make a video about it in years time. So in due time, the user, who went by Radicat Foo, went onto YouTube, knowing that they only had an hour left to record. Um, knowing that they only had an hour left, they They made the video. They made the story. They told the tale of what the Hat Man said to them on that one day. And while the Hat Man probably appreciating it, who knows who else the Hat Man is telling these things to? I have a few guesses. I think I know who the Hat Man is telling these things to. I have some ideas. One of them is Aaron Rodgers of the Green Bay Packers, famous, very famous football team of Wisconsin. And the Hat Man and Aaron Rodgers, he was the quarterback. He scored a touchdown one day. It was a cold day. He scored a touchdown, and while he was scoring the touchdown, after he scored the touchdown, he saw somebody in the stands stand up and walk onto the field. And like when you do that, you get gunned down. You don't do that. You get gunned down. There's snipers. But this man walked into the field, and Aaron Rodgers looked at him. He stood maybe like a foot away from Aaron Rodgers, maybe like 2 feet. He said something that changed Aaron Rodgers' life forever. I believe I know exactly what he said. The Hat Man walked up to Aaron Rodgers and said, and well, Aaron Rodgers didn't take that very, very nicely. Aaron Rodgers knew that wasn't the kindest word to say, so he got a little bit upset. He took a trip to a country far, far away, South America or Central America, one of those. I don't remember exactly. Um, let's just say, while he was there, he indulged a little bit. He indulged in some psychoactive substances, and these substances caused him to see the Hat Man again. The Hat Man exists in the fifth realm. The fifth realm is the realm next to ours, directly beneath us, directly inside of us, even directly next to us, but we can't see it because we're in our realm. While he was there, the Hat Man and him had a nice little conversation. Hat Man said, "Aaron, do you remember that trip that you took?" Aaron said, "Yes, I'm on it right now." Hat Man looked at him and he said, "You know, you aren't. You're here." And Aaron Rodgers said, "I'm on my trip right now. Who are you?" And the Hat Man said, "I'm the Hat Man." And Aaron Rodgers said, "Nice to meet you, the Hat Man. I'm Aaron Rodgers. You're keeping up with me." Hat Man said, "Remember that experience years ago?" Because it was years ago at this point. Aaron said, "Yes, I do." Hat Man said, "I have to talk to you." Aaron said, "What do you have to say?" And the Hat Man said, "Aaron Rodgers of the Green Bay Packers, you owe me a bit of money." And Aaron said, "How much money?" And the Hat Man said, $2.3 trillion. Now, $2.3 trillion was a substantial amount of money at that point. And it also happens to be the amount of money the Pentagon lost directly before the attacks of 9/11 on September 10th. The Pentagon lost $2.3 trillion, and it's unaccounted for what happened to it. But the Hat Man, sorry, the Hat Man said, "You owe me that money." Aaron Rodgers said, "Well, I don't have $2.3 trillion to my name. I don't have that. I'm not that rich. I'm not the Pentagon." So the Hat Man said, "That's okay. No one else has $2.3 trillion. It's gone." And Aaron Rodgers said, "Yep, that's pretty true." So the Hat Man said, "Aaron, you need to come up with that money at some point in time." And Aaron agreed. He agreed. He knew that he owed the Hat Man money. The Hat Man took him out of the fifth realm, put him in in our realm, the third realm, third reality, third dimension, X, Y, and Z axis. The fifth dimension has the A and B axis because it loops around for some reason. It goes X, Y, Z, A, B. Those directions are the closest that I can say are diagonal. If Z is up, if Z is outwards, and if Z is outwards, Y is upwards, and X is like a cross. A is inwards, and B is like spherical, like around the grid. Um, That doesn't matter in the third dimension because we only have X, Y, and Z, which is boring, incredibly boring. You can't do anything. But Aaron went back to third dimension, and he said, I need to come up with $2.3 trillion. So he went back to Green Bay, but he realized Green Bay is boring. There's nothing to do in Green Bay except play football. Out of the story, I've been to Green Bay. Like me personally, the person recording, I've been to Green Bay. It is it is boring. There is nothing there. There's Lambeau Field, which is pretty cool. There's like a whole entire like park outside of it. Really cool area. That's like the only part of Green Bay I enjoyed. There was a park outside of it. It had like a couple like really big playgrounds. Like really, really big. Not for like not for like little children. Like really big playgrounds. Really big. There's like a mini football field that like had footballs there for you to use, which is crazy. But other than that, I don't remember much. Oh, there was like a tennis court. I do remember that as well, which is weird because football is a completely different sport from tennis. Tennis is tennis. Football is football. But that doesn't matter at all from what we're saying. What I'm saying is that Aaron Rodgers, he knew that Lambeau Field was like there was nothing there. He couldn't do anything there that would get the Hat Man his $2.3 trillion. So he went to the second biggest place in the state of Wisconsin, and that is the city of Milwaukee. In Milwaukee, there's a few more things to do than to play football and tennis and playgrounds. And Aaron Rodgers, he knew that Milwaukee is the place to be to get $2.3 trillion. Milwaukee is the $2.3 trillion capital of the world. So when Aaron was there, he very quickly actually managed to find $2.3 trillion, kind of just laying around. He asked the people around, hey, is this your $2.3 trillion? Hey, is this your $2.3 trillion? And said, no one said it was theirs. Everyone said, nope, you can have it if you want, I guess. You don't find anyone. So he took the $2.3 trillion, went back to Lambeau Field, took a plane to South American country, took the psychoactive substances again, met the Hat Man. Hat Man said, that was quick. And Aaron Rodgers said, yeah, here's your $2.3 trillion. Hat Man was like, thank you very much. However, and this is where it gets important, you've owed me this money for a long time. Aaron said, yeah, here it is. Better late than ever. Hat Man said, yeah, but like it gained gained interest. Gained interest. And Aaron Rodgers said, oh my God, how much interest? Hat Man looks around, he gulped, he starts to sweat, he tugged on his collar. Hat Man said another $2.3 trillion. Aaron said, okay, that's fine. I can pay you that. Hat Man said, okay, good, you better. So Aaron got back to the third dimension, because remember, you got the fifth dimension. Different place, different time, different. But the Hat Man said, wow, because he was in his own dimension now. There was no Aaron Rodgers around, and he starts to talk to himself. He said, I'm scamming this bitch. You do not, I'm scamming you. Get out of my way. I must get more money now, thank you. You are not getting your money back. He said to himself, and the Hat Man said to himself, I'm going to get like $4.6 trillion out of this. And I can do a lot in the fifth dimension. $4.6 trillion? Ooh. I can buy you a house and a car. Fifth dimension housing is very pricey because no one wants to live there. Or everyone wants to live there. Everyone wants to live in the fifth dimension. No one can afford it because no one has $4.6 trillion. Which is fair because anybody who's not a fifth dimension resident will die very quickly in the fifth dimension. Because the atmosphere is actually made out of completely methane. There is no oxygen. There is no anything. It is just methane. You bring a lighter to the sixth dimension, fifth dimension. It's in flames. That's why metal isn't allowed in the fifth dimension. That's why lighters aren't allowed in the fifth dimension. That's why nothing is allowed there. But back in the third dimension, where the atmosphere is actually breathable, Aaron Rodgers went back to Milwaukee, the $2.3 trillion capital of the world, and he couldn't find any $2.3 trillion. And apparently, as he was gone, stopping the $2.3 trillion capital It's Chicago now. That's the new $2.3 trillion capital. And Aaron Rodgers said, Chicago? I can't go to Chicago. It's Chicago. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. So while Aaron Rodgers was in Chicago, he didn't go to Chicago. He hired his friend. He hired his friend whose name mustn't be muttered. He went to Chicago and he died. He's dead now. So Aaron Rodgers is now $2.3 trillion in debt and has lost a member of the human race. So he's to blame now. The Reaper, the bell shall toll. His story will end soon. And well, as he realized, oh, I can't find $2.3 trillion. There must have been a sleeper agent in the psychoactive substances because he started to trip balls again. And sooner rather than later, he was in the fifth dimension. The Hat Man said, "You are responsible for a man's death. You now owe me another $2.3 trillion and Aaron was like, oh no. And the Hat Man said, and an extra $1. That's how much a human soul is worth. $1. Well, it's $1.32, but like we don't care about. Nobody carries coins anymore. The Hat Man doesn't have change, so Aaron couldn't just give him $2 and get change back. So Aaron Rodgers said, "Okay, I can do that," and he slipped out a pristine $1 American tender. Gave it to the Hat Man. He said, "Thank you," and he put it in his pocket. Hat Man said, $2.3 trillion now. Aaron didn't have it. You don't just have $2.3 trillion on you. So Aaron Rodgers did what Aaron Rodgers does best, and he played football for a couple seasons. Saw the Hat Man in the stands cheering him on, booing the other team. Felt good. He scored touchdowns. And he got the $2.3 trillion in a matter of 16 years. And he was old at this point. He was like, you need a walking stick. And Aaron Rodgers said, Hat Man, I am in my old age. Here's $2.3 trillion. Hat Man took the money. Said, Aaron, you've owed me this money for a long time. Inflation builds up. You owe me another $2.3 trillion. And Aaron Rodgers just killed himself at that point. He's dead now. He couldn't bear paying another $2.3 trillion to the Hat Man. That's where Aaron's story ends. But 16 years passed, and Radicat Foo was born at this point. Radicat Foo turned approximately 16, maybe 17 at this point. And he didn't know who Aaron Rodgers was. No one knows who Aaron Rodgers is. The Hat Man made everybody forget of his memory. Except for me, of course. I'm a fifth dimension resident. Speaker of this video, fifth dimension resident. I know all. Time is what I am. And the Radicat Foo, 16, 17 at this point. Somewhere in their dreams, somewhere in her dreams, she heard of this story. She lived this story. She was Aaron Rodgers. And in this story, everything happens as normal, except the Hat Man never came to anyone in the first place. It was only Aaron Rodgers who ever seen the Hat Man. Now, Radicat Foo had a story to tell. So she logged onto her computer. Only an hour left, because this hour is important. At the end of the hour, something will happen. The Hat Man's bell will toll, and another soul will be claimed. The Hat Man claims a soul every hour. And well, Radicat Foo got into a bit of a beef with the Hat Man. In her dream, she was Aaron Rodgers. Instead of paying up the first $2.3 trillion, she made Aaron Rodgers look at the Hat Man. She said, Mr. Hat Man, I don't owe you any money. She said, get out of my head. I don't owe you money. Get out of my head. Fuck you. Hat Man got mad. The Hat Man said, well, Aaron Rodgers, that's not very kind of you to say. The Hat Man said, you're not very kind at all. And with the snap of the Hat Man's fingers, Aaron Rodgers obliterated, turned to dust, turned to ashes. In seconds, it took mere seconds for the Hat Man to make Aaron Rodgers combust spontaneously, turn to ash. Well, Radicat woke up cold sweat. She knew what she had to do. So she logged onto her computer and started recording this very story. And 20 minutes and 18 seconds passed at this point. She still hasn't told the main part of the story. Well, let's just say things aren't as they seem anymore. The Hat Man is coming for another victim, and well, let's just say Radicat Foo may be next.